On me. Hi, Elizabeth. How you doing today?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm having an excellent weekend. How about yours?
I know, isn't Otakon so cool?
Everybody keeps saying how welcoming it is, especially for like all the new guests. I mean, of course, I've been here, but like, how's it been for you as the guest of Otakon?
Fantastic. I mean, I've heard about Otakon for years, so I was pretty, honored to be invited to be a guest here. And it's just, it reminds me, like, my favorite cons are the ones that feel like it's about the fans and not about making money. You know what I
I don't
mean?
want to say no names. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like this one definitely has that feel, and everybody's has been super warm and welcoming. And to Otakon, like the staff's credit, it's such a well organized convention, which makes my life so much easier and frees me up to just kind of like enjoy the interaction with fans.
Yeah.
So
Which has been pleasant this entire weekend.
absolutely, yes.
For our fans and for most people that might not know you, what's something most people may know you for? Um,
Oh, let's see. On the anime side of things, it would be I'm Midnight in My Hero Academia, Emir in Attack on Titan, Caulifla in Dragon Ball Super, Winter Schnee from Ruby.
you lost me.
Yeah, it's okay. It's Rooster Teeth. It's not like Japanese anime. And then on the gaming side, Persona 5, I'm Sai Nijima. And in Zelda Breath of the Wild, I'm Urbosa and Riju.
Yeah, I definitely hear the sigh now. I
Yeah.
didn't know that before, but I definitely hear it now. Um, as far as like working on Dragon Ball, did you get the opportunity to get into any of the screaming that they usually do on this
Oh,
show,
good lord.
or the heavy breathing? Like you had to prepare for that. Sean. I don't know if you had a chance to work with Sean because y'all went that episode together.
Right, because we always end up recording alone
Mm.
for basically anything because of sound integrity, and also Sean lives in LA and I'm based out of Texas. But I've met Sean many times at Okratron or at conventions or events and so forth. So I didn't get to work with Sean on the show, but he and I are familiar with each other, and yeah, I mean, as far as the screaming, it's like most people do not land a role in Dragon Ball and not walk out at some point
A
having
scream
lost
test.
their voice. Like, it is the most intense of intense animes that exist in terms of like the combat.
No, and a lot of the animators you just mentioned is primarily like contracted through Funimation. Is that
Mhm.
like a main like studio that you deal with as far as terms of like voice recording?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's Sentai in Houston, there's Bang Zoom and Viz and in LA, but I work primarily with Funimation, and then Okratron is contracted by Funimation to work on Dragon Ball Super. So yeah, it's I've mostly worked with them partially due to my like physical proximity.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's right in your
Yeah,
backyard, basically. So just
exactly.
driving to work. I always, I know a lot of people say now, like now that the technology has changed, like they're recording separate from everything else. Now I just feel like that's. I mean, I guess you kind of like you react to whatever they give you, like what's already partially recorded, and you just react from there instead of like being in a room with everybody. You guys playing off of each other now.
Yeah, I mean, it's why when you're like a dub actor, you always like cross your fingers that you're one of the later ones to record.
Mm.
Because if you're one of the first, you're literally just like acting into a vacuum because nobody else has recorded the English lines.
Mm.
So you're in there like in silence, like just doing your thing. Whereas every time somebody records, they add that in.
Mm.
So say if like Dawn Bennett, who voiced Kale, if she came in and recorded before me, I would get to hear all of her lines like in my headphones before I would, do mine and react to them. Whereas if I'm the first, then I don't hear anything.
So you gotta like play off of your own like your own voice acting that you've done. Have you had the? I mean, I guess have you had a chance where you've like kind of like had the response to a character that you've done yourself? So like you were talking to yourself as you and then responded.
Have I done that? I'm trying to think of if I've ever played like two characters together on screen. I feel like it's probably happened before, but not very often. There are so many voice actors that usually like the directors try and like, break it up a little bit and parse out the parts to many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but yeah.
Zelda. I was looking at that. I was like, that's typically that game is not really. Those games aren't voice acted. So this
Yeah,
is like the first one where that this is the opportunity where a lot of the characters, but Link, is voice acted with the exception of like the noises he makes. How did that come about? Like you get like Nintendo just came on the way and say, hey, we need you for this. Like we want a voice actor. We want Zelda voice acted for the first time.
No, I mean a lot of people don't realize that a lot of like the casting process for voice acting, particularly in the gaming world, is like super secretive.
Yeah.
So nothing goes by its real name. Like you don't know what
Code
client
name.
you're actually auditioning for. Yeah, the title is given a code name. The characters are given code names. Usually they take out like any identifying information in terms of like the descriptions of the characters or your audition lines. So, I mean, I went through like the first round of auditions for Zelda, the callbacks. I got cast, signed contracts, and like still had no clue what I was auditioning for or had booked. And it wasn't until I literally showed up at the studio for my first session, walked in and saw the script and like read like Hyrule on the script that I was like, oh my God. I had no clue. No clue.
I want to see like a picture of these NDAs that you guys signed, because I just imagine it like they're this thick, like which you cannot talk about. You can't give any details, can't say the colors, anything about this whatsoever.
Intense.
Or I mean, I know of course you're doing like a lot of video game work.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done any like any live on screen acting?
Yeah, that's actually kind of how I began my journey in the acting world, was doing first theater and then TV and film work. And I still, do TV and film. I audition all the time, do a lot of commercial work, do a lot of independent film out in Austin, a lot of indie horror stuff. And I've done some like network TV stuff too. Like I've been on Criminal Minds and the Dusk Till Dawn TV series. But for me, voiceover just kind of like took off in a way that, I was just had a lot of momentum and a lot more early success in that realm. And so I've kind of ended up inadvertently focusing a lot of my effort into that realm.
Makes
but
sense.
I still love on-camera work as well.
Yeah. I really like Criminal Minds. It took your mom off. I can't watch it anymore now.
No.
It's not the same show. It's not the same show. What's next?
Well, my NDAs say not much.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, yeah, unfortunately, like, it's always so hard to be able to, like, hype what's coming next, because we can't usually announce it, but...
Not even projects. What are you doing when you get out of this con? You go home, relax.
Well, like, literally next, I have a My Hero Academia panel, and then... I am going to go find myself a nice glass of wine and some dinner. Perhaps. There's so much good Middle Eastern food here.
In DC?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing it.
Yeah, and that's a cuisine that's really lacking in Austin. Austin has great food, but it does not have great Middle Eastern.
A lot of burgers and steaks.
And barbecue. Yeah. And then, get some rest for another awesome day at Otakon tomorrow, because the conventions are so much fun, but they are also exhausting.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have to sleep like an extra 2 hours, like when I come to conventions.
Sai Najima, Persona 5. That was a pretty major role in that game. It's one of my favorite. It is my favorite game. How did you like the fan base reaction to the game in general and your character specifically? How was that experience for you?
It was really cool because, it's funny. I have been gaming since I was like 5 years old. I had like the original Sega, system.
Nice.
And I've always been an RPG girl. but somehow I missed the Persona series. Like, I really
Yeah.
don't know.
They started coming out
how-
in like PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
And they were like really niche titles.
Yeah.
Like,
And I didn't get into PlayStation until a little later because my older brother kind of like determined a lot of like what systems were in our house. And he was always like into the systems that didn't end up doing so well, like, you know, Dreamcast and stuff.
Hey, great games though. That's some great games.
I know, but yeah, rip. So I honestly was not very familiar with like the Persona series
Mhm.
before I was invited to be a part of it. And I like had the concept that I knew it was going to be a well-received
Mhm.
game, most likely, that it was a big game, but I didn't realize like what a big deal
Mhm.
like the Persona franchise was to people and like how loved it is. And I didn't even realize like how amazing Atlas is with like their translation and their story and the depth and complexity of like their characters and the storylines and stuff. Like I was blown away by the issues that they like addressed and were willing to tackle in the game, and I was like, dang, they're not
So
fooling
They start
around.
off strong right at the beginning.
Yeah. So I kind of like I kind of guessed I was coming into something special, but the reception honestly surprised me a bit.
Yeah, you, Erica, name slipping me, but you guys definitely have put a like strong influence on that game and like what you've done. I know you have like a panel like women in anime that you guys are doing, but like those are like really big to like a lot of people. And you see like the cosplay and like the influence that has on a lot of women that are here.
It's awesome.
Especially Morgana, people love that character.
No.
No, you didn't get a role in this game. You didn't get a role in Persona 5 Dancing All Night. Like the main cast.
I was really kind of crossing my fingers.
Oh yeah, because she doesn't dance in the game yet.
I think Sai would have some pretty
She
smooth
would.
moves.
She would. She probably have a similar costume to what her sister wears, which is like the S&M like style costume. What is that, like the motorbike?
Well, they haven't given her
Or Persona. She had like a lawyer.
I feel like she would have something even nicer than that, honestly.
Like a high-end couture version.
Yeah, like it would. She's a step above. She just didn't get in the world to get the persona to manifest the persona.
Right.
All right. Okay. Well, that's it. Well, thank you for talking with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Glad that you were able to reschedule us because we know we were supposed to get you yesterday. We got you today.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
You guys too.